So without any further ado, Margie Ireland.
Thank you. Thanks, John. Thank you. So I think the reason why John asked me to talk to you about this topic is largely to do with a fair amount of research I've done over the last couple of years on my quest to become a psychologist. In particular, last year I did a study with 16 Brisbane-based CEOs around what gets in the way of their ability to have self-belief and achieve more in their businesses, and essentially, maintain their mojo for themselves and in their businesses. And it was quite an interesting study, and a couple of the things that came out of that I'll talk about and focus on. So in talking about mojo though, I wanted to sort of understand, what's the definition of mojo? So I went to the good old online dictionary, and this is what I found. So a quality that attracts people to you and makes you successful and full of energy. A power that seems magical and that allows someone to be very effective and successful. Then you go to the Urban Dictionary, which I prefer. A bit more practical. The word originally means a charm or a spell, but now it's more commonly said meaning sex appeal or talent. I can get any girl if I just use a bit of that old mojo. Man, that girl's got mojo. God help me, I think I've lost my mojo. So, and in understanding mojo, and mojo's not a psychological term. Because I'm becoming a psychologist, I'll get to sort of what's underneath mojo. But in my late 30s, I'm 46 now, I lost my mojo in what I was doing. I had been run a few recruitment businesses, and before that I'd been in IT. And a few things happened for me personally around the age of turning 40. And suddenly at 40 I decided I knew what I wanted to do when I grew up. And that was to be a psychologist. And when I was hanging around with my mates at QUT, or half my age, I said, well, I just had a 20-year gap year. So so as I got into my studies, I realised that, I'd struggled in high school, and so my self-belief and my abilities to actually get through was quite low. I was just happy to get through the first semester, but I knew I needed to do something different. And here I am 6 years later, graduated, honours last year, and I got a distinction for my thesis, and I am as surprised as anyone. So in doing that, I realised through that path that, I'd found my mojo, I'd found what was important to me, I'd found what I had value in. And that's a really big part of it. And that was a big part of the research I've done the last couple of years, is finding out what your values are when it comes to not just at home, but what happens at work. So in thinking about mojo and those descriptions of mojo, just think about some people that you think have got mojo. It might be yourself, might be the person sitting next to you. So in thinking about them, just call out some words you describe them, traits, personalities. How would you describe someone that's got mojo? Passionate? Yep. Motivated? Yep.
Groovy.
What was that? Groovy. Ah, okay, yep. Charismatic, yep. Confident. Enthusiastic. Excellent. And I'm sure there's many more. That's a good start. Okay, sorry about my writing. Okay, all right. So, as I said, with mojo, that's a term we use, but underneath it there's a psychological construct, get a bit psych on you now, called psychological empowerment. And that's what actually, if someone's got psychological empowerment, they've got mojo. And if you look at some of the descriptions there, you've kind of, resonated with some of those. And the big focus of my study was self-belief and this high on purpose. When you go in to do a study and when you're trying to help people improve performance, you're really firstly looking at, well, what gets in the way? That's where we tend to start, and most of my research has been, well, what gets in the way of affecting us? So then we can look at interventions or strategies to actually bring that back. So some of the main things that decrease mojo and some of the more external factors are things like toxic leadership. Lots of stuff coming out now about narcissistic leadership and all that stuff. I'm not going to talk about that today, but that's a big factor. And the next one is the job role. Do you know what you're meant to do? And they're more the external factors. So they're the things that are sort of, outside in our world. Then we start moving to more the internal. Things like self-efficacy. Do I have the skills and support? And then really getting internal, like unhealthy coping strategies. How am I dealing with stress at work? What am I doing? You know, am I drinking more? Am I eating more? Am I sleeping more? You know, what am I doing to cope? And then disconnection from values. And what I mean by that is, you know, if you ask someone or you know someone, as they walk in the door to work, they check their values at the door. And they walk in the office and they go, it's all good. It's all good is one of my, I hate that saying. Because often what it's meaning is it's not good. And you're telling yourself that lie as you walk in the door. And that's my business. I see a lot of people, and most of my clients have lost that disconnection. And they've got other values which are equally important. They've got to pay mortgages and all that sort of stuff. Get all that, okay? But there's a real disconnect there. And the last one, and this is what I'm going to focus on because that was the focus of my study, is negative self-talk. And this is a big one. So let's talk about negative self-talk. Okay, so negative self-talk is that voice in your head that is saying, you know, is talking about yourself to yourself. It's the internal dialogue. And whenever I do negative self-talk, I always do this funny hand because it's a bit like that. It's a bit like this thing that's shown up going, oh, you're going to fail. Oh, you're a loser. No one cares. No one's listening to you. You know, you're going to be bankrupt. You know, your wife doesn't love you. You know, like, you know, whatever. You know, all that stuff that goes on in your head. And it's something that it's very hard to control. And what happens with negative self-talk is that if we get what they call fused with it, if you start paying attention to it, you can lose focus on what you've got to do. So a live example of that would be, and I was talking to the ladies about this earlier, and I did some research on public speaking. Lots of negative self-talk going on, right? Because people are looking at you, they're judging, well, you feel like they're judging you, you know, wondering, are you going to fall over, make a fool of yourself, all that sort of stuff. So if I was paying attention to the negative self-talk going on inside my head at the moment, it would be, you're breathy, you're speaking too fast, no one cares about your personal story, you're boring them to tears, they wish they weren't here, they came to see the other speakers, you're wearing the wrong outfit, they're judging you for that, they wish you'd just get off and do something else, you'd be better off running out of here like a screaming banshee, okay? So that's fairly accurate of what's going on for me. Now, if I focused on that, right, I might not have even shown up tonight, right? And that would have meant that I would have been working away from my values. Because what's important to me tonight is to contribute, right? It's to give you something that you can go away with, okay? So that's my value. So by being here and being present, I'm working more towards my values, okay? But it doesn't mean that I'm not feeling anxious, which I am. And this is where it becomes important. I'm touching my stomach because that's where you start to feel the anxiety or the frustration. It's in your body, and that becomes an important part of awareness with it, and I'll explain that shortly. Okay, so where negative self-talk affects mojo is that it's, you know, when it starts to show up, you start going, well, you know, do I do what I need to do, or do I move away or withdraw? Okay? And the other thing that Westerners tend to do is that when it shows up, we want to anaesthetise it. We don't want to listen to it because it means we might have to do something. And the biggest way we do that is food, alcohol, drugs, sex, too much sleep, not enough sleep, too much exercise, not enough exercise, all that stuff. Now, some of those are healthy coping strategies, granted. But when we're using them all the time to try and shut this out, that's when they become unhealthy. And that's when they get in the way of you being able to perform. If you're drinking too much, or if you're eating too much, or if you're doing unhealthy things, it's going to actually put you back. So what do we do with all that? Okay. So this is a evidence-based tool, and I use this a lot with coaching, and I'll try and sort of explain it briefly. So what you've got there is you've got, on this side, you've got where people are working towards their values. So this is walking towards, and this is away. So this is me being here and being present, and this is if I hadn't shown up tonight. Okay? Above, you've got the behaviour we see above the line and below the line. So this is a bit like the iceberg. It's what we see. So it's what we see when you're working towards your values, and what we see when you're going away from them. And underneath, these are the internal experiences. These are the feelings that are going on. So to describe that with what I've just been talking about, so my value for you is to you get to contribute, for you to get some value. Now, if I'm walking away from my values, like I'm feeling anxiety, right? Now, everyone's different. You know, it might be frustration or it might be something else. Okay, now, when, if I'm feeling high anxiety, what I could do would be to withdraw. Okay? And that would be an option. Or I stay here, knowing this is going on, and try and do one of these. And I don't know if that's how I'm coming across, but I know that when I am connected to my values and contributing, I feel passionate, or I feel like I'm, doing something that's helpful. Okay? So that's how this works. And where I see this a lot is a manager or a leader trying to run a successful business. They're trying to contribute. They're trying to hit targets. Something gets in their way, whether it's external or themselves. And they start to get anxious or stressed. And then what they tend to do, and I don't know if you recognise this, is they micromanage. How many people have done that, experienced that with people that they've worked with? Okay. It's quite common. I do it myself. I've done it myself. And so what's happening is when you can't achieve, this anxiety is starting to build up and you're going, I don't want to feel it. I don't want to deal with it. So I'm just going to jump in, because if I jump in and start doing something, I'll stop feeling anxious and I'll get closer to this goal. Now, what happens when you micromanage? What happens to you and the people around you? Hate you. That's extreme. Okay, yeah, good. Yeah. What else? Ineffective? Yeah. Okay. And if you're brave enough, people that have micromanaged or, are self-proclaimed micromanagers, how do you feel when you're doing it?
Don't enjoy doing it, do you?
Huh. Control? Yeah. Okay. So for many people, they're actually working away from their values, because what they want to do as a leader is usually be one of these things, okay? And where I find this really interesting is when you do 360 feedback, and I don't know if you've ever done that before, but when I see that in feedback is that, this is where the, organisation and people are giving you feedback about, you as a leader. And often what happens is people think that, yes, they're contributing, they're feeling this, and they're doing this. But actually, the feedback is saying they're doing this. They think they're doing a really good job of covering it, but actually what's showing up is something quite different. And so their mojo has dropped, and then they're starting to affect the mojo and the enthusiasm of the people around them. So, okay, so what? Yes, this happens. So what do we do? So in the study I did with my CEOs was when I was looking at self-belief and work goals, I wanted to find an intervention that would help them do this, feel this, but go here, not go here. And the intervention that I used was mindfulness. Who's familiar with mindfulness? Yeah, okay, good. Well, that's good. That's great to hear. So mindfulness is kind of put in that category of meditation. And I'm not any kind of meditation guru or anything like that. I just want to find stuff that works, that can actually be used. Meditation's a bit different because it's quite targeted. And what the researchers suggest, and it's mounting and mounting and mounting, is that by practicing mindfulness regularly, which is, I think it's 4 times a week for 20 minutes for 8 weeks, that's what the research suggests, is that it teaches you and helps you go from here to here without going here. And the way that it works is that it has this ability by practicing it regularly is when that self-talk comes up, when that blah, 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 you're going to fail and they're judging you, it has this ability to create this awareness that that's what's going on. And you feel it in your body first normally. And so by just giving you that moment, even if it's just a couple of seconds, to have that space to go, I'm feeling this, I've got a choice. I can do this or I can do this. But because this is more important to me, I'm going to choose to do this. And that's how that works. And in my CEOs, that's what happened. They practice this, and that's what happened. And their general mental health scores went up as well, which was quite interesting. So it does work. What was also interesting, though, was they stopped using it after the study. And I couldn't, went, okay. So, but that's because a lot of people find, some people find mindfulness, they don't get it, they don't want to do it, they find it difficult to do. So I did some further research because I wanted to find something that was practical. It was really important to me, to go, well, I know this idea works. So I found another study and another tool, and this one's a bit more fun, and you've got it in your bag to take home with you. And this is called cartoon play, where I call the Daffy Duck Homer Simpson exercise. Now, I'm going to make another fool of myself if I haven't already, so I'm going to show you how this works. So what happens is you imagine your favourite cartoon character, whoever that is, and they have to have a voice. And when that voice starts going on, this is what it would look like. And mine's Homer Simpson, okay? So watch this. Oh, do, they think you're a phony, and oh, do, they're not interested in anything you're saying, and oh, do, you better run out of here because now you're doing a really bad Homer Simpson impression. Now, you laughed, right? I'm glad you laughed, just that for my own ego, but the point of that is that it does make you go, there's that voice. And isn't that a bit silly? Isn't that a bit silly that, because I don't actually know what's going through your brains. I haven't gotten that far in my psych studies yet. But the idea of it gives you that moment again to go, here's that going on. I'm feeling this is going on, but I've got a moment now. I don't have to engage with that. I'm still going to do what's important to me. I'm going to focus on the goals of the day and get what I need to get done. Google are bringing mindfulness into their business. They have for the last 4 or 5 years. They've done a huge roadshow recently, I believe, because they're seeing the effects of it. So I think that's really cool. So in closing up, understand what your values are at work, really important, because that helps you start building this picture together. Work in environments that are going to encourage it. Sometimes you're just in the wrong place, the wrong job, the wrong career, the wrong company. Develop healthy coping strategies, whether it's this or something else. But most importantly, be kind to yourself. Doing this is hard. It's like going to the gym and practicing something. Being able to do this is hard. I go here all the time, but I don't give myself a knockabout. I just reposition and go back. I hope that's of value, and thanks for listening to me tonight.